You're a land thief, a criminal. That's how Karen Stanton, the HOA president with a knack for slapping people in the face with her power trips, greeted me at our recent neighborhood meeting. Not a simple, "Good evening, Mr. Thomas. Your garden's looking lovely lately." Nope. She stood up in the middle of the room, pointed her finger at me like she was summoning Satan, and shouted loud enough for the whole block to hear. "You're occupying HOA property. That land belongs to the association." Me? I calmly took a sip of coffee and replied, "You sure about that? Because your father sold it to me back in 1992. I still have the receipt, his signature and his lovely note, wishing you peace in your new home." Very heartfelt. The room fell silent, like I just dropped a thunderclap. Karen blinked. Her lips tightened. She didn't know. Or she didn't want to know. I didn't come here to stir up drama. All I wanted was to live in peace on a piece of land I legally purchased over 30 years ago. But when Karen, dressed in her plum-colored blazer and armed with a stack of self-written HOA rules, declared war on me, my only option was to fire back, with legal documents and a touch of sarcasm. Welcome to the story. Karen called me a land thief, but I bought it from her dad in 1992. Hold on to your coffee, because it only gets crazier from here. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 62 years old, a retired civil engineer. I hate drama, love organic vegetables, black coffee, and peace and quiet. Back in 1992, I bought an acre of land on the outskirts of Elm Ridge, a charming little area that years later would give birth to something called the Metropolitan Elm Ridge Estates HOA. The man who sold me the land was Arthur Stanton, a kind old gentleman and the original landowner. We shook hands, signed everything with a notary, and he even gave me a handwritten letter. "I hope this land brings you peace. Don't forget to plant sunflowers. My mother loved them." I've kept that letter to this day. In 1995, I built my home. In 2001, I retired. In 2005, Arthur passed away. And by 2012, Karen Stanton, his daughter, had taken over the HOA like she was the mayor of a city she invented herself. Then came 2023. That's when I received the first letter from the HOA. Resident at 148B Oakline Drive is in violation of landscaping code. Grass exceeds 4 inches. Minor issue. Until the second letter arrived. Then the third. And then Karen showed up, in person, clipboard in hand, heels tapping on the sidewalk like some soundtrack from hell. "You're required to join the HOA," she said, "and pay dues, $275 a month, backdated from 2007. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Karen, I'm not part of the HOA because I was never in the HOA. This land, sweetheart, your father sold it to me. Long before your little homeowners association even existed." At first, I thought Karen was just your average control freak, but I was wrong. One Monday morning, I woke up to find a giant sign planted right in front of my gate. "Property under legal dispute, trespassers will be prosecuted." The sign had the HOA logo on it, painted in angry red letters, rough and loud like something you'd see outside a military compound. Neighbors passed by, staring at me like I was being sued for land theft. I called Karen and demanded she take it down. Her response? Cold as ice. "If you're not a land thief," she said, "then you have nothing to fear from a sign." I called the police. They came, reviewed my paperwork, and then invited me to the county land records office, apparently in response to an anonymous complaint. I sat across from a clerk flipping through maps and firing off questions like a prosecutor. "Do you have legal proof of ownership? Who sold you the land? Why isn't there an HOA record update since 2005? I handed them the original notarized deed, but by then, my blood was already boiling. I was being treated like a scammer, all because of the slander from a woman who simply couldn't accept that her father had legally sold this land, a land I've lived on for over 30 years. And it didn't stop there. A week later, I got a letter from my home insurance company. Policy temporarily suspended due to unresolved legal dispute. Karen had sent them a notice claiming I was an occupant under contested land. For 3 whole weeks, I lived without property insurance. If my house caught fire, if someone broke in, I was completely exposed. I had never felt so insulted, humiliated, and isolated. This woman was using her power as HOA president to strip away my dignity just because she couldn't control the truth. Karen was no longer just a nuisance. She was a legal threat, and I was ready to strike back. 3 weeks after I thought the storm had passed, I got a letter from the county land office. The gist of it? A third party has filed a complaint alleging you are occupying HOA property. Please appear to verify ownership. I laughed. Not the ha-ha kind, the I'm about to have my lawyer drop a legal hammer on your desk kind. So I called my attorney, Marcia Goldstein, real estate law specialist. And as fate would have it, a woman with a deep, burning passion for crushing rogue HOAs. I told her, Marcia, I think I've got an HOA president trying to play Wild West with the law. Her reply was ice-cold perfection. Good. I like swinging legal axes. Send me everything you've got. So I gathered the goods. The 1992 deed of sale with Karen's father's signature. The original plot map, bold red county seal and all. 30 years worth of property tax receipts. The handwritten letter from Arthur Stanton with the line, wishing you peace in your new home. And the crown jewel, a photo of me and Arthur grilling barbecue on the foundation of the house. Taken in 1994. Marcia looked through it all and nodded sharply. This is more than enough. I'll file a legal response and counterclaim for defamation and intentional interference. The next week, I submitted the full package to the county. Karen got a copy, and at the following HOA meeting, she stood up and boldly declared, "We cannot allow strangers to occupy our ancestral land." I raised my hand to respond. I'm not a stranger. I've been your neighbor for 30 years, and this land, your ancestor sold it to me. I've got receipts, photos, and barbecue sauce to prove it. The room burst into laughter. Karen did not. The legal game was officially on, and I was the one holding the board. The county hearing took place on a Tuesday morning. I showed up in a white button-down shirt, khaki pants, and brought a color print of Arthur Stanton's 1992 letter, carefully framed like a monument to basic human decency. Karen walked in wearing a purple blazer, the kind you'd only find in a clearance section labeled "Power, but make it petty." My attorney, Marcia, opened with a calm, surgical question. Miss Stanton, are you aware that your father sold this property in 1992? Karen laughed, like someone just asked if she believed in aliens. Absolutely not. My father would never sell that land. This is clear trespassing. Marcia nodded, like she'd heard this delusion before. Excellent. Let's begin with Exhibit A, the deed of sale, signed by Mr. Arthur Stanton. Exhibit B, the original zoning map, clearly marking the property lines. Exhibit C, a handwritten letter from Mr. Stanton to Mr. Reed, and Exhibit D, a 1994 photo of Mr. Stanton and Mr. Reed grilling sausages on the very land Miss Stanton claims is being illegally occupied. The courtroom chuckled. Karen? She turned pale, as if those old sausages were still sizzling on the back of her neck. The judge nodded thoughtfully, then spoke. I see no reason to question Mr. Reed's ownership. The HOA's complaint is hereby dismissed. I turned to Karen with a polite smile. Looks like the law isn't quite on the side of your high heels today. After the court threw out the case, Karen didn't show up to the next OA meeting. According to a friendly neighbor who used to be Karen's unwilling assistant, she was on sick leave due to justice-related exhaustion. Sounds about right. A common side effect after getting publicly unmasked in front of an entire neighborhood. Me? I didn't take any time off. I kept going. My attorney, Marcia, filed a civil lawsuit for defamation and reputational harassment. The court moved fast. HOA was ordered to pay me $25,000 in damages, plus court fees. Where'd the money come from? The HOA's insurance policy. And the insurance company? After cutting that check, they canceled the HOA's coverage due to, quote, excessive legal risk. Quick recap. Karen lost her credibility. The HOA lost a pile of money. The residents lost trust. And me? I got paid. And my property now has more legal armor than a bank vault. The following week, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Single agenda item, remove Karen Stanton as president. Final vote? 27 in favor, 1 against. Karen. That's democracy, American style. Karen wanted me gone, but in the end, she's the one the HOA cleaned out of the neighborhood. And just like that, I was called a land thief and walked away with $25,000 for the crime of being too insulted. Karen lost her seat. The HOA lost their insurance? And me? I'm still watering tomatoes on the very land I legally bought from her dad 3 decades ago. Sometimes you don't need to shout, P. You just show the receipt and let the law do the talking. If you've ever had a self-declared HOA president try to tax the air you breathe, smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Because trust me, This won't be the last time a Karen shows up. They always come back. But this time, I've got cameras and a new lawyer who likes her coffee extra strong.